Hi and welcome back to the Super Game Bros Part 2, and in this part we're going to be going over something that Danny mentioned in Part 1, which was EA and DICE downgrading the graphics for Battlefield 4. Now, with the changes to the consumer rights law in the UK anyway, that Parliament announced earlier on the week, that's going to be a wee bit more difficult for companies to do now, Danny. I don't know if you've read up on this, if any of you've read up on it, guys?
Yeah, I read a wee bit on it.
And what's your take on it, Will? Do you think it's a more fair law, from the consumer point of view?
I think it gives gamers. I mean, obviously the consumer rights law is not just for gamers, but it does encompass the gaming industry as well. So the fact that we're here to talk about games, I'll make it about gamers. So I mean, in my opinion, it's a massive step forward for the gaming industry with regards to quality control when it comes to games, because I mean, like you said, EA brought out Broken Field. It's a term we've come to coin recently, because that game was a giant mess when it was released. You had Assassin's Creed Unity, you had the Halo Master Chief Collection, and you also had the PC version of Batman Arkham Knight recently as well. And they all released, and they were, I mean,
broken.
Batman's only just been re-released on PC because it was so broken. So, I mean,
yes, exactly.
you've also got the Tony Hawk game that came out last week as well, which is an absolute abortion again because of the amount of bugs it's got. And I think this new change to the law means that companies, or gaming companies, developers and publishers in general, are going to have to, they're going to need to watch what they release, because if they're going to cost themselves a lot of money if they release a subpar game or a substandard game, and it's such a mess that hundreds of thousands of people are going to want their money back.
Yeah, exactly.
They're also going to lose what reputation they've got with gamers as well, because if they keep releasing games where it's an absolute mess, then they're never going to get those fans back.
So I think this is interesting, because in a sense, what you have is understanding the different roles here. So developers develop and build games and make stuff, and are working to a schedule that's, I suppose, initially agreed with the publisher. And the publisher has an expectation that the game will deliver and it will sell X number of units and it will have X amount of cash flow. And publishers are very reluctant then to give that up. Particularly so if they then have an expectation that, and if you're Ubisoft and you're expecting to sell 1 million copies of a game in Q3 and you don't get it, well, that's a lot of money that's not coming into the company.
There's also more money spent on the extra development time.
Even if you were to say that they should have been doing that in the first place, well, it's the cash flow thing. So I think what you've got here is the tension between developers who want to build the perfect game and publishers who say we need to publish and we need to put it out. So it's getting that balance. What we now have is this leverage as consumers that says, do you know what, see, if you sell us a pile of rubbish, I can ask for my money back. Now, there will be people who will undoubtedly just sit and wait and get the patches and get the game updated. But if you get something that's fundamentally broken and not working, and you think, you know what, I've been cheated, I've been misled, and I think that's what the thing's really about. It'd be almost like saying, do you know what, see, if we brought out Master Chief Collection and we've promised you 1080p and it runs on 435, do you know, it would be
that would be a fundamental change in the game.
Yeah,
Something that they couldn't say, oh no, we couldn't get any closer, which they basically they could.
Yeah.
So it would be grounds for going back and saying and this is where this law comes in as well. It's not, you wouldn't be contacting the publisher or the developer over the fact that the game's done. It would be the vendor. It would be the person that you brought the game from.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, just to quote Business Minister Nick Bowles, he said that whether it's downloading music or buying a fridge freezer, the Consumer Rights Act makes it easier to understand your rights. He then talks about how much is spent in the UK a month and how important it is to shop with confidence. Now, do you think you were mentioning there, well, about the clear rights for digital subscribers, for digital users? Now, you know about this right to repair or replace thing, where you've got 30 days, right? Now, Andrew, do you think that 30 days is a long enough time for someone to judge a game? For instance, I won't use our favourite whipping boy in Broken Field 4, but we'll take a game like, I don't know, The Witcher 3, right? To use an example now, I don't know if there was any problems with the launch of that game, I don't think there was. But do you think that 30 days is long enough for a player, for a normal gamer, for your average gamer to judge a game as to whether or not that's, there's been fundamental changes to that game?
I think so, yeah. The important thing to remember is it's not the case of the judging this game is rubbish. A game is a game. The fact that it's mechanically sound should become apparent well before 30 days is up. I think the key phrase that people are using is fit for purpose. You can tell when you load something up what it's running at. You can tell if the frame rate is jerky. You can tell if key elements have been taken out of the game, which it shouldn't take 30 days to notice stuff like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Now, just to go back to your point, Danny, about how they downgraded everything, that would be making fundamental changes. And if that happens now, you can go to in America they have they have what they call a class action lawsuit, which are quite aggressive. I mean, the last time EA lost a class action lawsuit, which I believe was over Broken Field 4, it cost them $30 million. In the UK, they've now with the changes, they've brought in their own version where it's basically you and the company sit with an adjudicator and you put your cases forward, and if they don't replace or repair within the 30-day time limit, and you're still not satisfied, then you go to this person and it gets sorted out to everybody's satisfaction. Now, whether that's like the equivalent of a small claims court where you'll get possibly a refund and a free game or whatever. Do you think that that's something that we'll possibly see within the next, scheduled set of release times? In Q3, maybe Q4?
No, not necessarily. They have really smart lawyers who will wiggle their way out of it. I think they'll find a way.
Yeah, well, we did discuss this when we first heard about this law as well, like at the start of the week, regards to certain publishers and developers. I mean, not so much the developers, because they want to make the best game they can. They
agree with that.
At certain times, they just don't have the time scale, which you can never blame them. I mean, they have at some point turned around to the publisher and said, right, we can get a game made in this amount of time, and they said, right, well, we'll give you this amount of money to make it in that time scale. Yeah. So, I mean, they've got to get it in that time scale, or they risk having to try and fix a game and not be paid for the rest of the work that they're doing. So, I mean, it is partly the developers' fault if they're too ambitious with the game, don't fulfil the time scale that they've got, then it's partly their fault. But at the same time, the publishers can be slightly aggressive on, we're not moving, we want this game out and we're going to get it out. If you have to patch it on day one, then patch it on day one, but it's going on discs like a fortnight beforehand so that we can get them sold. And that happens, from what I've gathered, it happens a lot more these days. I mean, you can tell, certain games, they came out, was it obviously Tony Hawk, we keep going back to that one, that had an update bigger than the actual game on the disc.
Yes,
which leads me to believe that the publisher, Activision, they just decided, right, we are just going to get this stuff onto a disc and you can patch it on day one. And I think the developers went back to the drawing board and said, right, we'll take the game as is, we'll fix as much as we can, and we'll update the game with a completely brand new copy of the game. So that's why it's as big as it is. They've basically let you have a digital download of a game.
Yeah. Now,
so that's what makes me think that the patch was so big, because a patch that big, I mean, you get like normal sized games and you get a couple of megabytes of a patch, which basically fixes little bits of code on the game. But for a day one patch to be bigger than the game itself, you've got to think that it's the entire game that they're replacing.
Yeah. Now, just to point out, I mean, while you keep mentioning patches now, do you think, David, that with the changes in this Consumer Rights Act, we're going to see the complete disappearance of like your day one updates or your day one patches? Because now the onus is on the publisher to make sure that the game is working, basically 100%. That means that the game's got to be more polished, it's got to have time spent on it. Okay, folks, sorry, but we seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties with David. I don't know if David can hear me, but we can't hear you at the moment, David.
Oh, well, that's...
Oh, we can now.
You're back now.
That helps if I take it off mute.
Yes, it does. Now,
let's just redo that segment change.
yeah. So David, Will keeps mentioning patches, as I've already said. Do you think that we're going to see the complete disappearance of day one patches, day two updates, that sort of thing?
Not at all. I think we'll still see patching going on pretty routinely. I think that there will be perhaps more of the kind of decisions we've seen with Rainbow Six, where they're like, do you know what, we are still quite some time away from this game being ready, and from originally being, do you know what, we're going to do this in December or whatever, then it's like, do you know what, we're going to push it out and it's going to be sometime next year. I think you'll see more of those kind of decisions. And I've got to say, I admire the kind of the Rainbow team for doing that by saying, you know, we know the game's not ready, so we need to spend more time on it. I think for me, what it does do is the financial onus for doing the refunds goes back to the publishers, because the publishers are the ones who will make deals with the distributors who pass it on to the vendors, and it goes back up the line. And so the publisher will have a clear line of sight that says, do you know what, if I have to do refunds in this game, it's going to hit us where it hurts, and that's in the bottom line. End the patches, I don't think so, but I think there will be less reckless game releasing of some of the things that we've seen. I think you could argue, for example, that what 343 did with the Master Chief Collection, where by and large the campaigns were all working fine, but the multiplayer stuff was an absolute mess. But in return, they've made compensation by way of some free Xbox Live Gold time, and you also got the ODST game. You know, and you're saying to yourself, is that a reasonable recompense for that?
I would say so. I mean, ODST is an awesome game. I mean, they were intentionally, they were intending on bringing that game out anyway. They were planning on putting it on the Master Chief Collection. The fact that they gave it for free was even better. I mean, granted, the multiplayer didn't work, but I mean, this could just be me. I mean, I didn't play a lot of the multiplayer. I still haven't played a lot of the multiplayer because I play a lot of the Halo games for the story. So I mean, obviously the fact that the Master Chief Collection, I bought that because I've got all the other Halo games and I wanted to see them updated. So, I mean, the fact that ODST was given to me for free just because the first month or so of multiplayer wasn't as promised on the box.
Yeah,
there are plenty of games out there that don't do the stuff as promised on box. I mean, look at GTA.
Yeah,
a lot of people just thought that GTA Online was going to come with the game on day one, which it didn't. It took months to get that out.
Yeah, but Rockstar announced that.
Yeah, they did say that, but a lot of people still they just took it that I mean, a lot of people did actually take their games back because it wasn't working. They assumed that the game that they had bought wasn't working when Rockstar had said. I mean, it's a bit different for people like us who do keep up with events in the gaming industry, but for the average gamer, they generally don't get all the information.
This is true. Now, Andrew, do you think that this law protects the consumer, you know, for the point of view of the gamer, especially with digital content, DLC, that sort of thing? I mean, as far as I'm aware, there's been no mention in the law itself of actual downloadable content, that comes out maybe 3 or 4 months later. But I would assume that with it being digital content, it would still be covered separately. Do you think that this law gives you yourself as a consumer, as a purchaser of video games, do you think this gives you a lot more protection, especially when dealing with your larger companies like Sony, who were notorious for not giving refunds on the PlayStation Network? This law now means that, in the UK at least anyway, they must.
Yeah, it's compared to what's been there before. When Steam brought out their refund policy, it was very limited, but it was something. Something was there that somebody could act on, and that was a massive step forward. So bringing in something like 30 days, no restrictions on usage. If it's broken, fix it.
Yeah,
that can't be bad for the consumer.
Fix it, replace it, or give a refund is basically what this act's doing. But like I said, it's essentially the vendor rather than the company or the developer or the publisher.
Yeah.
Rather than them being responsible for giving you what you want, you go to the person that you buy it from.
It's the seller that has that responsibility.
The vendor's responsible. I mean, the fact that I work in retail, I know a bit about the way returns policy works. I mean, in the business that I work in, if a customer was to bring a game back and it was broken, then we would take that game back. We would either replace it like for like, or we'd give a refund. The damaged item would then be sent back to the people that the company that I work for bought it from, and then we'd get our money back for that single item.
Yeah, and there's a chain that probably goes back to the company that produces it, and there'll be an intermediary, there'll be some software distributor that sells the games on. So there's a number of links in that chain, but fundamentally from a customer, you go back to the person that you bought it from.
Yeah, you go to the person you buy it from.
That's the point of resolution for you.
Yeah.
I think what essentially this act does is treat digital content as a product, really, for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Essentially, yes. I mean, it's the act itself is for digital content, but it's treated in the same way as a physical copy would be. So, I mean, if you were to buy a code from, say, Green Man Gaming, who primarily work with Steam codes, if you were to buy a code from them, you don't go to Steam about it. You go back to Green Man Gaming, and they are then bound by law to either replace the item or refund you, because obviously certain things can't be repaired. But at the same time, certain companies as well cannot, within the 30 days, offer you a repair. So if there's a patch coming out that's going to fix the problem that you've got, then that's basically what their recompense is. They will say to you that there's a patch coming out, this is what we're going to fix with it. Are you happy with that? If you're happy with that patch, then yeah, you're fine. You get your 30 days, you hopefully get your patch inside that 30 days as well, and everything's fine. If you're not happy after the 30 days, then you can still go back and say, no, you didn't live up to the promise that you gave me, so I want my money back.
But then that opens up a can of worms where you've got a game like, say, Drive Club, which, as we all know, when it was released, it had massive netcode problems.
Mm-hmm.
So they released a patch after 2 days. That patch didn't work. Right now, under the new law, they would have had to have told us, right, that we're going to be patching it within 30 days. So when they patched it, we were thinking, great. So then they go in. So then you go in again to go online, and it still doesn't work. So does the 30 days now carry over, or is it now going to be a separate 30 days?
It'll be 30 days from the original point of purchase. That's the clock for them.
Yeah, your original 30 days. If they put a patch out within the 30 days, then that clock changes, because it's then became a completely different item. Because they've changed fundamentally what the product is by patching it, it then becomes 30 days after that.
I'm not sure it does well, but then I'm no expert on it. From my perspective, your original purchase date gives you a 30-day clock, and the vendor has the opportunity to fix, repair, or replace, or refund. And if they attempt to do that and that fails, you don't get another 30 days to try and fix it again.
No, you only get one chance.
Yeah, so my expectation would be is one 30-day clock, and when that clock is over, you're entitled to say, right, give me my money back. I know you're trying to fix it. I hope you can fix it, but right now I want my money back, so I go and spend it on something else.
Yeah, so Danny, what that would mean is, in your example, you would have had 30 days from when Broken Field 4 launched to saying to whatever it is you have to say it to, whether it be the person you bought it from or whatever, look, this game isn't working, it's broke, got to fix it. Would you say that the terms of this new Consumer Rights Act are actually quite fair from both the developer publisher's point of view and the point of view of the public, or would you like to see maybe more stricter controls introduced into the Consumer Rights Act?
I think it's a step in the right direction. Before this, there wasn't really much. It was like sort of an outlaws like kind of word where they do what they want kind of thing and have no repercussions. I think likes of EA and that will now be quaking in their underpants as such at the possible lawsuits coming up with future releases.
I think what it does is it kind of really underscores that publishers need to be confident that what they're publishing works, rather than the publish and then patch mentality that we've seen with some games. I'm not saying don't patch, don't fix as you find things out, but you need to be aware that either things are fundamentally working as they should or not, and if they're not, then you shouldn't sell it because it's not of I think it's merchantable quality.
Yeah, it's not of the quality that should be expected of a title.
Yeah, so I think in that sense, it probably puts more of an emphasis on the publishers. It's interesting because I think if you look at Xbox Live and the purchases that you make there, they're very clear. It's a no refund policy, so they will have to amend that in the UK to reflect the new consumer regulations, because they can't just turn around and say, well, I'm sorry, it's an absolute, tough, you've bought it. It will be as, see, if it had been broken, Field, they would have had to do refunds if people had asked for them.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, one of the aspects that a lot of people haven't even considered yet, and this was one of the things that I thought about, and I don't know what that actually says about me, is that from the point of view of a gamer, if companies now know that in the UK, certainly, they have to make sure the game is very polished, working correctly, it says what it does on the tin. That might mean a longer delay time before release. Now, Andrew, do you think that would have any great impact on the video game culture as it is in the UK? With like some of these highly anticipated games maybe having to be delayed even more just to come in line with UK law.
It's a risk, but 100% honestly, if you've got a choice between having something which is broken mess now or next month having a fully working copy, I think common sense will come in at some point and people will go, well, I'd rather have something that works next month. Let everybody in North America play a broken copy and shout about it on Twitter for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and wait for a patch to not work.
Yeah.
At the same time, something that we haven't fully pointed out yet is obviously the potential for longer development times. It may actually push up the cost of games as well. Obviously the publisher may have to spend more money on the development cost because of the extra time that they've had to add to this game, so they may actually want to charge more for the games to try and recoup that extra cash.
It's possible. I think what it might be more that we will see more realistic timelines for game development, and if it means that things will only sell if people are prepared to buy. If you come out and say, you know what, a new AAA game's 80 quid, I don't think that's going to sell.
No, it won't fly with most consumers.
No.
I'm still not happy with the £52 price mark on certain games.
Yeah, to be honest, I think about 40 quid feels right for a new AAA title, and I can probably get that if I shop around. Whereas if you go into the online stores and Xbox and I'm presuming PlayStation, it's saying to you it's 50, 54, 55 quid.
Yeah.
Madden is still $54.99 on the Xbox store in the UK, but you can pick it up for 40 quid or maybe just a little bit less if you go and shop around.
The digital stuff is no relation on reality. There's this game on the Wii U store, FIFA 12, and it's still £40.
That's what confuses me. You have less production costs because you don't have it on a disc. You don't have it in a case. You don't have to send it to
No
to shops to
distribution.
sell. There's literally no distribution other than putting it up on a server and letting people download. Why is it costing more to download that than a physical copy?
And
Yes,
that has to be that's a whole other conversation, isn't
Yes,
it?
that's a whole new episode of the podcast. I'll tell you that.
Can I just add, sorry, that
Yes, Danny.
in this generation, yeah, the games are expensive, but they will eventually come down in price as the generation goes on.
Yeah, but the problem with that, Danny, is that consumers are greedy. They want
Yeah.
things
Yeah,
now.
I want
Yeah.
my 40
I know,
games now.
I think the game prices, yeah, they're expensive, but they will come down in price from like their 50 odd quid to maybe 40, 30 quid that we've seen that happen.
Well, I'll
last
put
generation.
it this way: if I've got to pay £60, right, to buy The Last Guardian, I will choke just the same way as I choked when Will talked about the actual price increase as I was drinking some juice. Thanks for that, Will.
Yeah, you're welcome.
What
Not,
I'm,
not to put any salt into the wound, but I got a brand new copy of Wolfenstein: The New Order for £10 the other day,
Oh, there you go.
and I also got Dragon Age Inquisition for £6.50.
yeah,
Very nice.
what I'm talking about is
But, I mean,
actual new
Wolfenstein-
releases. Like, say, for
Yeah.
example, a game comes out, like, in a year's time, a new game, new Battlefield comes out. It could be 30, 40 quid, as if it was released today, it'd be 50 quid. Every new game will
Yeah, but
eventually come down in price.
certain developers don't drop their prices ever. I mean, look at
No,
Nintendo.
I know that, but like,
There's Nintendo
there
games
will
out
be-
there that are still full price after years of being released. I mean, EA are well known for it as well. Their games will stay as high priced as long as they're
Yeah.
making money from it.
but like, I'm talking about day one releases. They will eventually be coming down in price on
They
day
might.
one.
Honestly, I don't see it for this generation. Everything this generation's been expensive so far. I mean,
Yeah.
we're nearly 3 years into it.
Well,
so-
But
yeah.
look at the last generation. That happened. Games from day one were getting cheaper from day one.
Yeah, but there were still games right up until the end of the last generation that were still as expensive as they were to begin with.
Yeah, the problem we have now is essentially that people are paying it. And as
Mm,
long as
yeah,
people are
that's
willing to put out £45-50, they'll continue to charge £45-50. If everyone went tomorrow, no, I'll pay 35. 35 would be the price, quite sure.
Yeah, but then you'd have the Call of Duty fanboys still paying the extra money and keeping Activision and Call of Duty games.
I think they
Yeah.
need to add an amendment to
One in
this.
the morning.
I think they need to add an amendment to this law then, you know, where it gives us the right to go into like your local game or HMV or wherever and haggle for the price of a game.
Yeah. It's just like, I'll give you a fiver. And they come down. They come down a fiver from 60 quid, and then I'll give you a tenner, and they come down another fiver.
Aye.
We'll meet somewhere in the middle.
Aye. Yeah, you know, something like that. But so essentially, our rights now as consumers are protected. So we shouldn't be, from now on, there shouldn't really be any releases like Tony Hawk's or like Drive Club, or even like the usual whipping boy Broken Field 4. I mean, we know it was a mess. We know it was a complete shambles of a game. But
Yeah, we all bought it anyway.
yes, we did. It's like flogging a dead horse now. So we'll end part 2 on that joyous note, and I hope that you, the listeners, have learned a wee bit about your rights now as they stand towards digital releases and how
Check up on it anyway.
protected you are. And join us in part 3 where Andrew and David are going to be discussing with us or telling us about the new Xbox One dashboard.
Experience, get it right.
Okay, the new Xbox One experience. It's just outside a Thorpe Park. So that, as I said, that's the end of part 2. We'll be back part 3. Hi and welcome back to part 3 of Super Game Bros podcast. I'm your host Ricky McMillan, and I'm joined this week by Will Hamilton, David Morris, Danny Black, and Andrew Driscoll. So far this week we've talked about the consumer rights law and the UK, how its changes affect and protect us, the gaming consumers, as well as discussing earlier on, and you may have missed that, the Battlefront beta test that's running at the moment. Now, in this third part, we're going to be talking about, as Andrew's just corrected me, the new Xbox One experience, which is a new dashboard that was launched for individuals who are part of a program with Xbox One. Am I right in thinking that, David?
Yeah, so the way that NXOE, to give it its acronym, the new Xbox One experience, the way that they've rolled that out is they've started off by asking anyone who's in the preview program, do you want to opt in? So this is different from the way that the preview program has acted previously, in that you had to, instead of saying I'm in the preview program, I'll get the new stuff, they've done a very carefully staged rollout of the NXOE, starting with the people who've historically given them the most feedback. So the early builds are likely to have the most bugs and the most attention required. And let's be clear, this is why they're doing this, so as they can get feedback and help polish the experience. And then they've expanded it, and there's been further expansions on a couple of days. If anyone is keen to understand what's happening there, then a good Twitter account to follow is the one of Mike Ybarra, who's the head of platforms at Xbox. His Twitter handle is @XboxQuick, that's with a Q, QWIK, and he's normally very good at letting folks know when there's new builds rolling out, that sort of thing. Kind of very, very, very good account to follow if you're interested in that. So I got my Dash last Saturday, and had a wee bit of problems getting it installed, but that was resolved fairly quickly. And then a massive patch within a couple of days, a 3.4 gigabyte patch, if we were talking about patches. And so it's been up and running for me for the last week, and so any gaming that I've been doing has been on the NXOE since. So I've played a number of games. I've played, for example, the Battlefront beta on the new Dash. So that's kind of where we've got to at this point. And I have to say, I've probably sent in about maybe 6 or 7 bug reports about things that aren't quite right or not working. But that's fine. I think that's part of the deal of getting into something as early as this.
And Andrew, is there any new features on the NXOE? Does that not sound like a science fiction program?
Or a really crap band. I've only had the new dashboard for say 48 hours. Mine was actually quite a quick and easy install. I didn't have, I think I come to it too late to worry about the massive patch. Mine was, I think it was only 1.4, 1.5 gig. Still took a while because the Xbox is not the swiftest downloader in the world, but it all started nicely. To be honest, I haven't explored all the features to their massive yet. I've done a couple of the quests. The Microsoft preview program gives you, it should ask you to try things out, but it tries to make it fun, so it calls them quests.
Oh, so it's not actually an RPG?
No, sadly not, because no, they give these things, they call them quests, and this just go to this, snap this, does this work? Yes, thank you, you've completed your quest. It's not quite Zelda.
No gold and no fairy following you about.
Now, David, I believe you've got a surprise for us regarding the NXOE, is that correct?
Yeah, I do. Now, you'll have read recently that the Cortana functionality isn't going to be rolled out until 2016, and that some of the folks in the preview should expect it soon. Cortana's there now, and it's working now. You just need to know where to go and look for her.
That's okay. It's all now in front of me.
So what you do is on your kind of home screen, you take the left on your D-pad to bring up the left edge menu. You go to settings, go into settings, and then press up, and then what will happen is the highlighted bit will disappear. If you press A, what will happen is you'll have an app snap and Cortana will appear.
Is there any way to do that through voice? Obviously you can do the telling the Xbox to snap certain things. Can you just tell it to snap Cortana? Or introduced yet?
I think the idea is that Cortana you can go, hey, in the demonstrations that I've seen, you would go, hey Cortana, and then you would get the little wobbly sound and the blue circle would appear, and you would know that you could then give an instruction.
I think
Can I
once.
just cut in just for 2 seconds there when you said hey Cortana there, I've got Windows 10 on my laptop right next to me, and Cortana popped up the side of my laptop.
It's good to know she's listening well, do you know?
Yeah. I just worry about how much else she's listening to.
She's creepy. Another way to describe it is creepy.
That's a whole other
David,
whole other
don't worry
conversation.
if one day you're talking to your PC and she goes, "I'm sorry, Dave, I just can't do that." That's when you start to worry.
Yeah, especially if you're called David, it's like,
Yeah.
okay. But so I haven't had a chance to do anything other than just see that it's there. But it's there, so clearly the engineering behind it is currently hidden. I suspect what will happen is when we get the next iteration, it might roll out then. In terms of how it is just now, the home page, the layout and everything's different, and you need to get used to the new navigation. But I'm kind of starting to get used to it now. It felt quite clunky and unnatural at first, but now it's starting to make a bit more sense.
Is it anything near the Windows 10?
It's essentially Windows 10 app.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
I've
Windows 10
seen
app.
it, and obviously with the rollout of it and stuff, and they're trying to integrate it as much with Windows 10. Is it possibly just a cut down version of Windows 10 that they've added to the Xbox?
Well, as you might remember, when they've built the Xbox software, there is actually a version of Windows running underneath it, and all they're doing is they're replacing that core, that layer, with Windows 10 as part of this experience. So, I mean, I suppose my expectation is that it's expected to run faster. It is fast, it's responsive, except when you see bugs, in which case, obviously, you just have to do the bug reporting thing. But, I mean, other than that, it's not impacted on my gaming. It does have a tendency to drop you out at parties, but again, those are all just kind of bug fix things that you just need to report and let the engineering teams work on.
And what about yourself, Andrew? Have you noticed any wee bugs or anything like that?
I've had things go wrong. I've frozen in menus. I've had a group chat drop. But essentially, you're in a preview program of a preview program. You're going to expect these things to happen.
Yeah,
Totally.
you're
borderline through the
front line.
looking glass kind of thing. But generally speaking, I agree with it. It runs fast. It doesn't look particularly nice. It looks like, if anybody's experienced the Windows 10 app, that's essentially it. It's very long. It took me ages to find my apps option. It was the very bottom of the first page. Not that I was expecting to look for it.
Yeah, I know. So
I was
it's
scrolling back and forth for ages.
it's not intuitive, I think, in the way that perhaps, having spent time with the current version, it's quite a big redesign. But if it runs faster and it's more robust when they finally work through all these iterations, and we've got, the kind of stuff that we had when they did the demo at E3, where it was, hey Cortana, record the last minute and then send it on Twitter with this commentary. Being able to do that kind of natural language stuff. Caveat being, you need to have Kinect. So if you don't have Kinect, then you can't do the voice controls naturally.
Is that possible to do it through the headset though? Because I do have. I mean, I've obviously got my Kinect, but for some reason my Xbox seems to pick me up better when I'm wearing a headset and talk through the headset rather than the Kinect.
I would say that at the moment the answer to that would be no, and that you will need Kinect to do voice control. I do wonder whether that's something that they're working on in the background, and that might be a later release of the dashboard at some point.
I mean, it is a function on Xbox that doesn't have Kinect, where you can use the headset to do like the Xbox record this options and stuff like that. You can still use voice through headset. So, is it just not been added yet, or are you just
No,
you've not given it a try because you have Kinect? Or?
Well, I suppose there's an element of I've got Kinect, so I use it. I think there's some hardware in the Kinect that improves things like voice recognition, so that there's less effort being put on the CPU in the Xbox. So I think that's probably why.
You're Scottish, Welsh, or Irish.
To be fair,
Ricky,
Cortana does actually pick up quite well.
It understands me just fine, Ricky.
Does it?
You are the eloquent man, though.
Well, do you know that this is true, and to be fair, but I think by and large, I find the voice recognition to be pretty decent. I love, for example, I'm sitting watching a movie on say Netflix, the phone goes and it's Xbox pause. I get up, answer the phone because it's the house phone, and the movie pauses. I go and sit back down, Xbox play, and there's none of this faffing around for controllers or remotes. It just works lovely. So it's pretty cool that way.
It's the future. To be honest, I've never had issues with the voice commands either, and I talk in a very taffy Welshie accent, but half the time.
No, you don't say.
Bloody hell, man. And connect.
David, that was like Gladys Emanuele walked in the room.
Apologies for my awful accent.
Sorry, Andrew, we were getting diverted there. You were saying
I don't know, I've lost track of what I was saying now.
Yeah.
I have to say the voice command, even on the most obscure of British accents, like myself, it's always been good, and apparently it's getting better.
So I think from my perspective, I would say, so far so good. I wouldn't kind of necessarily characterize it as any stronger than that, but so far so good. We seem to have what looks like decent functionality, some things to work out. I think it will expand out fairly quickly. There's a lot of people sitting there, and if you follow any of the kind of popular like Facebook groups or Twitter lines on this, you'll have people who've had an Xbox for a fortnight who are suddenly an expert and saying, when can I play my Call of Duty Black Ops on my Xbox One with my 360 disc? And it's like, if you actually did a little bit of reading, you would understand you're just not going to do that. But you just kind of have to roll with that stuff. I think we will get something pretty decent in November. Whether it's at the beginning of November or the end of November, I don't know.
Oh well. So, Andrew, do you think that with the advent of this new, as they call it, NXOE, I mean that's like a bad episode of Star Trek. That is a terrible name.
It sounds like
bad
another wrestling
episode.
show.
Calm down.
I mean, no, it's just the initials. I mean, new Xbox One experience. That's fair enough. But when they initialise it, it's just ridiculous. It's either that or it's a chemical that could kill the world.
It seems as if they're trying to move the name away from gaming again.
I think it's just an acronym that they've acquired because it's not been pushed out as NXOE, but that's what Twitter has adopted it as. So you find the Mike Ybarras and the Larry Herbs of this world talk about NXOE as a shorthand. Twitter being what it is, do you want to type new Xbox One experience or do you want to do NXOE? And people will go for abbreviations and hashtags.
See, I wasn't aware that started on Twitter. I thought that was actually something Microsoft had decided to call it.
When they talk,
Major Nelson does he does throw that acronym about quite a lot.
Yeah,
there is a hashtag on Twitter for it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you'll find that there's a lot of stuff that gets talked about on Twitter then gets adopted into the dashes. So I mean, when you see whatever this week's what's on Xbox or whatever it is, his weekly show, I don't doubt there'll be some more stuff about the new Xbox One experience.
So is there a way of being able to move the apps around on this new dashboard, or are they fixed in position?
So they are in groups at the moment, and you can do things like you can pin certain apps or games to the bottom of the home page, and you can shuffle them around, you can reorganize them. But in terms of how the rest of the stuff's done, I don't think you can customize it.
Ah, right. And so, Danny, all this talk of Xbox One dashboards, do you think, as a PlayStation user, do you think that the PlayStation dashboard as it stands is, would you say it's as robust as the Xbox One is?
I would.
Especially this experience. From what David and Andrew are saying, and from the questions Will's asked, I get the feeling that this Xbox One dashboard is a lot more robust. You can do a lot more with it. Do you think the PlayStation dashboard needs updated in some way, shape or form like that. I mean, I know Update 3.0 came out recently, but I was going to make part of this week's show about Update 3.0, but let's be honest, Update 3.0, the only real thing to talk about would be the allowing to be streamed on YouTube. You know, everything else is boring.
The only thing I would like to see on the dashboard for PlayStation 4 is probably grouping of like games. The same way PlayStation 3 allowed it. You can like put different folders. You can make folders on PlayStation 3. It's PlayStation 4 you can't. That's the only
I'd
thing.
like to see the. That's a feature I'd like to see, the making, you know, creating your own folders and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that the dashboard, certainly for the PlayStation 4, is very. It lacks something. I mean, it's
Organisation.
There's that. You should
Space on the PlayStation 4 dash.
say that again.
So there's a lot of unused space on the PlayStation 4 dashboard. You've got that one line that you're going along, and then you get information below it, but there could be far more on the dashboard. I mean, I don't know, I mean, obviously you won't, Ricky, but Andrew and David will know what I'm talking about. When on the Xbox One, there's the pins section to the left, and you can add up to something, I think something like 30, maybe just probably slightly less than that, of apps and games and anything else that you've got on the Xbox. I think that there should be something like that on the PlayStation, where you have just a quick menu where you can get all the stuff that you want in one single page, rather than having to look through it.
It's kind of like favourites for your browser, isn't it? It's the stuff that you go to regularly, isn't it? And on the new experience, it's at the bottom of the page. And if you're on that home tab, if you pull right trigger, it takes you immediately to the bottom of the page. There's no scrolling, there's no delay. It's like, boom, you're straight there. So you can set those up. And you can pin pretty much about anything. For example, I bought Gravity, the movie, through Xbox. I had some credit from sitting on there, and the movie, I hadn't seen it in the cinema, and I was looking forward to it. So I bought it there. I've pinned the movie to my homepage, to my pins, rather than having to pin the application and then drill down and find that. It just goes straight to the movie. So you could do things like that. So that I think, you know, if you're
that's a good feature. I'd like to see something like that on PlayStation, to be honest.
See, there is the option on PlayStation, I think, to remove certain things from your top navigation bar, but at the same time, you shouldn't have to. I mean, with this pin section on my dashboard, and now obviously the updated one on the experience dashboard, it's just something that seems to be intuitive. The only issue that I've got with the one on the Xbox One now is the fact that you can't make the pins smaller. I've got because I've upgraded my the amount of space that I've got on my Xbox. I'd like to be able to put more on this pins thing and just have it all there. The ability to make each of your pins smaller would mean that you'd get more space on the page, so you could put a lot more on it, and it's something I'd like to see for that. Because I mean, I'm looking at it now, and I think I've got about 21 items on it. But if I was to make each of them smaller, I could get almost 100 on it.
Well, that's maybe something you could put in as feedback. Now, that's the end of this week's Super Game Bros. This was episode 9, Better Consumer Rights. I've been your host, Ricky McMillan. I've been joined this week, and I've got to thank you, lads, by Andrew Driscoll,
Hello.
Danny Black, David Morris, and Will Hamlin.
Bye.
Cheers.
For all new listeners, thanks for joining us this week. Super Game Bros is here every week and is sponsored by G2A.com and NoScopeGlasses.com. Links will be available in the show notes when they get published on the site in the next couple of days. I've been your host, Ricky McMillan. This is a Super Game Bros. Goodbye.